Can you ask Leon and Johnny to describe for younger listeners what it was like growing up in the George W. Bush administration?
Ooh.
I so for context, I was in fifth grade during like 9/11 and stuff, so I was not politically woke and active. But you guys are a little older than me, so
I didn't like him right away. I want that to be clear. I'm a George W. Bush hate hipster about this. Yeah. I thought he was going to be real shit as president, but I had no idea.
I feel like this question's coming from a place because he's kind of undergoing like an image rehabilitation because everyone's like, I thought he was bad, but compared to this Trump guy,
Okay.
like,
Okay, first of all, no.
okay,
I want that to be. I want that to be clear. I hate this like, let's pretend George W. Bush wasn't so bad just because he would only accidentally say something dumb, whereas like Trump is like actively trying to be like really aggressively bad. No, that doesn't mean anything. And I'm sorry, but like Trump is like he's on the way to being the worst president. Like he's getting there, but he's less than a year in. He hasn't done half the stuff that the George W. Bush administration did in its eight entire years.
I just want to jump in here, Leon, because I want to draw a very distinct line here and say that one of the most important things I think to remember about the George W. Bush administration is that last word, administration. One of the most odious things about Bush was not him necessarily as a person, but the people he surrounded himself with.
Yeah, but but here's the thing about that. Like, may you be judged by the company you keep.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not lifting responsibility off his shoulders. It's just, for me, the most threatening thing, like, to contrast against the Trump administration right now, I feel like the worst of the Trump administration is standing at the forefront of it. You know, like all of the nepotism that's going on around him is just kind of like a symptom of the disease that's sitting in the big chair.
I think that's more ego than it is like one is worse than the other, though. Like
But I felt like a lot of the evils in the George W. Bush administration were spread around. You know, from
there's a lot of shit spread around,
strategist Karl Rove, Vice President Dick Cheney, fucking what's his name, Donald Rumsfeld. In Secretary of Defense.
John Ashcraft was a real big piece of shit too.
Sorry?
John Ashcraft was a real big piece of shit too.
Yeah, and oh man, I feel like I'm only kind of like scraping the edge of the scum that settled on top.
Yeah.
But like, because you know, like Dick Cheney was a piece of shit because not only did he like shoot his friend in the face, he also has like a lesbian daughter.
Yeah.
But while he was in office, he towed the party line. He refused to talk about the fact that he had a lesbian daughter and was like, yep, family first, that's right. Marriage is a man and a woman. And the moment he left office, he started talking out for gay rights.
I mean, good for him on that, but like, you know when we really could have used you?
When you were in fucking office!
Yeah. What it felt like during the time I was, 18 through 26, and it was uncomfortable because this was me like just becoming an adult and like, oh, is the world bad? Wait a minute, I just became an adult. Is this how things are? Does everything suck? So it was an uncomfortable 8 years, I guess you could say. In my mind, I was just so sure he was only going to get one term because how could we keep doing this? And that's what I thought at the time. I was so naive, because God,
Bernie would have won.
Oh, you shut up. he would not. So anyway, yeah, it was uncomfortable, I guess you could say. The only good thing that came of it is I tried to learn more and more about politics from it, but it's not worth it. It's not worth it for the country to go through 8 years of hell just so I can be woke. That's, you know, I hate all those there's like really like terrible justifications for like when something bad happens and everyone's like, yeah, but maybe some good will come of it because then we'll try not to let this sort of thing happen again. That's like a really kind of privileged thing to say, though.
Yeah, only the survivors get to learn from history.
Yeah. So yeah. By the way, the image readjustment for George W. Bush in recent years, I'm not a fan. And but like a lot of people like see Obama and Bush like hanging out, and they're like, "Oh, isn't that neat? Like a show of unity." It's like, no, get away from him. What are you doing?
I mean, they're just rich guys. Rich guys share that common interest. It's not. Yeah. I mean, I think people just pine for the days when people at least pretended to be civil, which I get. Like there was comfort in that, and that's just effing gone now. But also, murdering tons of foreign civilians is.
It was like the thing I think that a lot of people forget about the Bush era is how oppressive it was. Because like everybody was living in a state of fear, essentially constantly. Not just fear of like terror attacks, you know, because this whole like war on terror thing was like brand new. America kind of got shown its own like flesh and blood insides for the first time in a long time, and had to acknowledge a little bit of vulnerability there that it did not cope with necessarily in, I think, the best way that it could have. But also fear of like your own government, because this is eventually what led to things like the Patriot Act. And the very idea that an American citizenship is not as irrevocable as you might think. You know, that privacy is not necessarily something that you're entitled to anymore. You know, like it was oppressive in so many different ways of like what kind of political ideas you might think were safe to have at the time. What kind of like personal activities, what sexual preferences, or, you know, like what kind of person you were or wanted to be. You know, like there was a lot of, it was essentially the creation of a lot of out and out targeted and racist and essentially like violent behaviors that had come out of that. Like, I'm not sure that things like Stand Your Ground would exist if 9/11 hadn't been a thing. You know?
You want to hear some creepy shit? After 9/11, like I said, I was in elementary school. And after that, for like basically the rest of my 5th grade year, like we'd have regular, I don't remember, it's been a long time, it might have been weekly or monthly, it was like regular, it happened multiple times, like school assemblies where they would just get the kids together and we would just we would be forced to sing patriotic songs.
Mm-hmm.
That became a thing too. That's actually why.
Or the renaming of French fries in American government facilities to freedom fries.
That was just like one shitty publicity stunt tantrum, but
I recognize that that's the case, but like this was the attitude, this was the prevailing attitude in America at the time, was we were made vulnerable, never again at all costs. You know, let's pretend it didn't happen, and what's worse is let's do everything in our power to create an oppressive atmosphere that will prevent it. Like, it was a real fucking 1984 moment. And you know, like, say what you will about George Bush, he did not inspire confidence as a leader. Like, he didn't. Mission accomplished, everybody. That was the big joke, right? He flew the fucking plane down onto the aircraft carrier, got out, stuck his thumbs up, and was like, "Yeah, we did it." You know, some fucking like 1 year into like the 18-year mire or whatever the fuck. I don't even know, you know.
Yeah.
But the people with him and the people behind him were just such snakes. They were the ones that scared me the most.
I was looking up some stats and stuff while we've been talking, and in Iraq alone, civilian casualties 116,000 dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to make something clear because someone is rushing to the comments section to say, well, what about all those other presidents that you might like and all the wars they were in and civilians? Yeah, I know. You don't have to tell me. It's fine. And this I learned this recently, so I re-looked it up to make sure I'm getting the numbers right. This is from a couple years ago, so it's more now. But let's see. Again, it's more now because this is from 2 years ago, but of the 248 armed conflicts in the world since World War II, America started 201 of them. And according to, and I want to make sure I get this figure right, the American Journal of Public Health, civilian deaths during war are 85 to 90% of casualties. So I know. You don't have to tell me. It's all bad.
It is all bad.
Okay.
You said earlier that Trump was on his way to being the worst president of all time, and it's like, think about how fucking high that bar is when most of the presidents have been slave owners. Fucking Andrew Jackson committed literal, actual genocide on our soil, and it's like, well, Trump's getting close. He's gonna overtake him any day now.
Right.
He just wants to be the best
Like
at being the worst.
Like no one ever was.
Yeah.
Sorry that was depressing, but it was a good question because my memories of that time are very vague, but obviously the atmosphere is, a direct result of that time. So
They were weird times. Like in around the same time in Canada, we had a thing where we, as a country, decided we were going to vote as to whether or not gay people could be able to marry. Like that seems so foreign to me right now. That's something that we should be like, geez, maybe we should figure this out. How about a bunch of people who should have no fucking say in it, of what somebody else decides to do with their fucking personal life, all go out to the voting booths and decide whether or not you should have the same rights as us. Like, that seems so fucking backwards to me right now.
yeah, I mean, we're not educated enough to handle democracy. Clearly, we're gonna have to move off this topic and do a more delightful question.